You're watching the KUSI News at 5.
Colleges and universities around San Diego County and the rest of the nation have switched to online learning for this fall semester because of COVID-19. Despite the majority of classes being remote, some schools are still bringing students to live on campus. Joining us now with his perspective on all of this is Fred Pierce of Pierce Education Properties. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Pierce, from your perspective, I mean, you manage and own a lot of these properties at different campuses. What is the trend that you are seeing with regards to whether students are making that difficult decision about opening up these dorms for on-campus for not only distance? Well, okay. Some students are going back to class. Other people are actually distance learning, but they're still living on the dorms. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. And there is a bit of a misnomer out there that with the information that's been promulgated across the country, that it seems that people think that everybody's going to online learning. But in fact, that's not the case, that the majority of universities in America are at least having some courses in person, and many are having a majority of courses in person. There are just a few that are going completely online. And with that, there are lots of kids going back to school and living at college this year.
You have a pretty extensive portfolio of properties. What have you seen with them, and what changes have you had to make to the buildings in order to make them safer in the midst of this pandemic?
Yeah, really good question. We've seen two things. First, starting on campus, where largely the freshmen live. And what we're seeing is universities de-densifying. A classic case is San Diego State University, where they're welcoming back only 35% of their physical capacity in terms of occupancy. So 2,600 students out of what could have been as much as 7,500. So they're de-densifying. And at SDSU, they've closed residence halls that have gang bathrooms at the end of the hall or were felt that weren't properly able to be socially distanced. And that's common, and that's happening all across the country. In turn, what that's doing is it's pushing students off campus where they're moving into properties like we have at San Diego State. We have Boulevard 63, and we got a rush of students when they canceled leases at San Diego State that came to some of the availability we had. And we are much lower density because we basically give a bedroom and a bathroom to one student and only one student. So it's called bed-to-bath parity. We're also socially distancing in our amenity areas where you have to schedule a reservation in the fitness center, and we're closing every other piece of fitness equipment and things of that nature. We've also changed even package delivery, where they used to come into the clubhouse to get their packages, and we now deliver them to their doors.
So, Mr. Pierce, most of your properties are actually off-campus properties, is that right? And how does your what is the term that you use?
De-densifying, yes.
De-densifying, yeah. De-densifying, that's a difficult one. How do you ensure that the students students are going to cluster. They're going to want to hang out with their friends. A dorm room that may be just for one person, how do you know that they're not going to invite their boyfriend to sleep over? Or, you can't really prevent that from happening. Is that right?
Well, in some instances, sure, if some a friend comes over, in the residence halls on universities where they have controlled entry points, they are actually making it a policy that guests are not allowed in the residence halls. You actually have to show, your ID to be able to get in that shows that you reside in that facility. Ours, on the other hand, are apartments. They're garden style, so they're spread out broadly. But we do monitor. Usually if there's a large group of people, even a medium-sized group of people, they make noise, and we pay attention to that. And we have rules against that, and those are being strictly enforced. So between our amenity areas where we monitor those, as well as paying attention to the residential areas, there's a much greater chance of fewer people aggregating in off-campus housing than there has been in the past.
All right. Well, thank you for detailing the efforts that you're making to bring kids back to a safe campus environment. Thank you very much, Mr. Pierce, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.